Like and subscribe, or this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. Kids of Reddit, what is something your parents do that they don't realize hurts you? Constantly correcting and moaning about minor details makes you feel like you're incapable. It never ends. The critiquing, correcting and stuff never ends. You could invent the next string of automated restaurants and make a very successful company and be doing well in life, and the first thing they would say is something like, "Did you remember to get a haircut?" And they think they are just trying to help us. But it feels bad. There are good ways and bad ways to help. Support, encouragement, and positive reinforcement are good strategies. Acting like an asshole and insulting your kid because you're just being honest and only trying to help will do nothing but make the kid hate you and themselves. I know from experience. I'm asking honesty as a parent. What do? I want nothing more than for my kid to be happy and capable, but when I see him about to do something that shouldn't be done, I do point it out. Wanting to help happened a couple of days ago. Son was making KD for him and friends. He's been shown and knows how, but instead of bringing the pot to the colander where the noodles are draining, he takes the dripping colander over to the pot on the stove with the pasta water going all over the floor. When I tried to get him to go back towards the sink, I wasn't trying to hurt his feelings. I was trying to save a lot of cleanup for him and me. Paraphrasing Robert Heinlein. A good leader sees everything. The bad, yes, but especially the good. Now I understand parenthood isn't exactly the same, but I've found that my employees respond well to criticism when I'm better known for praising them. Also, make sure you're actually helping them when correcting behavior. There is no way to avoid coming off like a jackass by yelling instruction from the next room over. I managed at work for many years and found the same thing with more praise than criticism. I think I praise my son often, but I'm going to really pay attention and up my game on that. Thank you. This is such an underrated idea, and I agree it's funny how much parenting and management have in common. Managing good behavior by calling out. You're too young to be tired, to feel pain, etc. It doesn't really hurt me, it's just annoying. Edit. Sometimes it hurts, depending on the situation. My mom did this to me all my life, and even as an adult. When I got out of the army, I was at her house for some reason, and I was really stressed, and she just looked at me like I was the biggest idiot in the world, and said, "What on earth could you possibly have to be stressed about?" I was like, "Well, I'm a combat veteran. I'm pregnant, and I just started taking classes in one of the most rigorous engineering programs in the country, but you're right. Nothing to see here. I told my therapist that story a decade or so later, and she explained that parents who treat their kids like this don't see them as real people. There are people, and then there are the kids who are not taken as seriously as people. Made perfect sense. I know a lot of people say kids don't have perspective/life experience. There are still consequences of being a kid, like being beaten for having bad grades. Some of these parents consider anything up to an A, bad, or failing a test means repeating a grade/not skipping a grade. And kids have to deal with bullying. Totally. I read something in a parenting book, I can't remember which one, because it was forever ago, when my kids were little, and it said that, if you don't take your kids' small concerns seriously, they won't come to you with their big concerns, because to them, the concerns have always been big. Now, while I do not consider my kids' concerns small, as you mentioned, things like bullying, tests, grades, etc. are very legit problems that kids and teens face every day. The point is fairly solid in general. If we minimize our kids' concerns by saying something like, you think getting good grades is tough? Just wait until you have a mortgage to pay, then they realize that they're not being taken seriously, and that's a pretty fucked up thing to do to somebody we claim to love. My kid. This is so true. Adult problems like work or a mortgage are easier to deal with, just because you know how stuff works, and can usually cope if something goes wrong. You can self-regulate your emotions a lot better. You have perspective, and you know when something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. Generally speaking, people don't yell at you, or condescend to you for making mistakes. When you're a kid, you don't have any of that. Your world is pretty small, you have little control over your life or routine, and you're pretty much totally reliant on your parents, who may be terrible at parenting. I think people tend to retain only the good childhood memories GBH. Like it's easy to remember it as this idyllic time, when everything was taken care of for you, and you just had fun all day. It's harder to remember how scared you felt when you were getting yelled at by someone 4 times your size, or how isolating it was when your classmates were mean to you. My dad refuses to teach me about finances because he wanted me to learn firsthand. He refused to help me open my own account or access the account he put all my money in. He refused to teach me the meaning of terms or help me with forms. I now have a full-blown mental breakdown when I have to do anything involving the bank because I just don't know how it works. I'm good with cash, but I would consider myself financially illiterate. Edit, since some people are confused, I'm answering questions here. My dad fully understands finances. He is a successful divorce lawyer married to an ex-banker. He also didn't give me money, he took my money and put it in a bank account, told me to access it when I had no form of ID. I do utilize online information, but I have some sensory input issues that make it a little more difficult for me. Not impossible, just harder. Thank you everyone who left advice and sources, I will be checking them all out. I appreciate how kind most people are being about this. This isn't helping, but I kinda taught myself financial literacy when I was little just by following my parents to the bank and reading all the pamphlets. My parents didn't teach me anything either, I just read financial literacy books from the library. You can also visit your bank's web. My mother constantly complains about paying her own bills 24/7. My parents got divorced when I was 10 because she cheated and moved out. As a result, she had to get her own place, work, and pay for things. She complains about paying for water, electric, food, her mortgage, etc. All stuff any person has to pay. Stuff that I have to pay too, yet I'm 23 and don't complain and live on my own. She genuinely still thinks she's entitled to some sort of financial support from my dad and whines about how poor she is all of the time. He still pays for her health insurance and even that's not good enough. Her constant complaining has always made me resent her. When I tell her to stop complaining because it bothers me, she doesn't understand why and tells me it shouldn't bother me because she deserves more money. She then lectures me on how shitty she thinks my dad is for not continuing to give her money. He literally gave her $1,000 a month in child support, even though I lived at his house, and he paid for all of my bills until I was 21. Opposite situation for me. Staying together for the sake of us. Both my sister and I would be much happier if they just bit the bullet and divorced. I'd much rather live in 2 happy houses than in one unhappy one. I met quite a few people who wouldn't divorce because of the kids. But for some it's just an excuse to stay. They don't want to hurt the kids, but they can't imagine that most of the time it's even more damaging to stay together. I think it's worth noting there's a parental selfishness angle as well. Meaning they are staying together because they both want to see you, their kids, every day they can. Selfishness might be too strong a word, but my point is there's some nuance in the reason. I know a guy who stayed with his cheating wife for this reason. When I asked him why, he just choked out, "I can't stand the thought of not seeing my kids every day." As a parent, I can definitely understand that feeling. For the record, I'm most definitely not advocating staying in a toxic relationship for the kids in any context. Some of it is likely financial too. A lot of married parents don't both have the income to finance a home and raise kids separated. They stick together till the kids can support themselves, then work their financials out and separate. It's sad for the kids, but the economic climate of the last 40 years brought it about as much as people's poor choices. My dad thinks I'm completely useless and a waste of time. He has no problem putting me down in front of other people, and he doesn't like to be challenged. Mom just tells me to get over it. He's your father. Meanwhile, everyone thinks he's some great guy at home who's incredibly helpful and perfect and kind and so on. Sorry dude. That sucks. Sometimes dads have certain shat qualities. Learn from his mistakes and be a better parent when you get there. He may just say, "Looks like all that rubbing worked, you've listened to me, and now you're great," or maybe he's Thank you for supporting Planet Reddit. I love you. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.